The Cursed Bookshop, Part 1. I never expected to inherit anything from my Great Aunt Lila. She was always an enigma, a woman of mystery and eccentricity, with a penchant for collecting the odd and the unusual. So when the letter arrived, informing me of my unexpected inheritance, I was more than a little surprised. I hadn't seen her in years, not since I was a child, but the memories of her small, cluttered bookshop were vivid in my mind. The bookshop, nestled in a narrow cobbled street in a town that seemed forgotten by time, was exactly as I remembered. It had an air of antiquity about it, with its weathered wooden sign swaying gently in the breeze. Lila's Literary Lair, it read, in faded gold lettering. As I approached the door, a strange sense of déjà vu washed over me. I had spent countless summers here exploring the dusty shelves, losing myself in the endless volumes of stories and knowledge. The inside of the shop was dimly lit, the scent of aged paper and leather binding filling the air. It was a place where time seemed to stand still. The shelves were crammed with books of all kinds, from classic literature to obscure texts that looked like they hadn't been touched in decades. A large, ornate counter stood at the back, behind which was a door leading to a small office. The whole place exuded a comforting, albeit eerie, charm. I stepped inside, the bell above the door tinkling softly. The shop felt alive, as if it were breathing with the quiet rustle of pages and the faint creaking of the old wooden floorboards. As I made my way through the narrow aisles, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. It was as if the books themselves had eyes, observing my every move. My Great Aunt Lila had always told me that books had souls, that they carried the essence of their authors and the spirits of their stories within them. I had thought it was just one of her many whimsical beliefs, but now, standing in the dimly lit shop, I wasn't so sure. I made my way to the back office, where I found a letter addressed to me, written in Lila's elegant, looping script. It was a letter of welcome, an introduction to my new life as the owner of the shop, and a warning. "Dearest Evelyn," it began, "if you are reading this, it means I am no longer of this world. The shop is now yours, along with its many secrets. Be careful, my dear. Some of the books in this shop are not what they seem. They carry more than just words. They carry spirits. Guard yourself and those who enter, for once a book is opened, the spirit within is set free." I felt a chill run down my spine as I finished the letter. Spirits? It seemed impossible, yet something about the shop, the way the shadows seemed to move and the whispers of the past echoed around me, made me believe it could be true. As I placed the letter back on the desk, a sudden crash echoed through the shop, making me jump. I rushed back to the main room, heart pounding. A book had fallen from one of the shelves, lying open on the floor. I approached it cautiously, the words on the page seeming to glow faintly in the dim light. I bent down to pick it up, but as my fingers touched the pages, a cold breeze swept through the shop, extinguishing the few candles that had been burning. I stood frozen in the dark, the air around me growing colder. Then, from the darkness, a voice whispered my name, "Evelyn." My heart raced as I spun around, searching for the source of the voice, but there was no one there, just the shadows and the books, watching and waiting. I knew then that my life had taken a turn into the unknown, and that the bookshop held secrets far more sinister than I had ever imagined. The Cursed Bookshop, Part 2. Returning to the back office, I began searching through Aunt Lila's desk. It was cluttered with old papers, receipts, and letters, but nothing that seemed particularly revealing. Then, tucked away in a drawer, I found a small, leather-bound journal. It was Aunt Lila's handwriting, the pages filled with her meticulous notes and observations about the shop. The journal detailed her discovery of the shop's peculiar nature. It started innocently enough, with accounts of strange noises and misplaced books. But as I read further, the entries grew darker. Lila described how certain books seemed to call out to her, their pages whispering secrets and invoking visions. She had discovered that reading specific passages could summon the spirits bound within the books, and she had spent years trying to understand and contain their power. One entry stood out. I have managed to bind most of the spirits to their books, but some are stronger than others. They are restless, and I fear what might happen if the wrong book is opened. The shop itself seems to have a will of its own, guiding those who enter to the books they need, or perhaps to the books that need them. As I read, I realized that Aunt Lila had been trying to protect not only the customers but also the spirits themselves. She had seen the shop as a haven, a place where these restless souls could find some measure of peace. But now that responsibility had fallen to me. Determined to learn more, I spent the next few days familiarizing myself with the shop's layout and its vast collection of books. Each night I would return to the journal, piecing together Aunt Lila's findings. It became clear that the spirits were not inherently malevolent, but their presence could be dangerous if not properly understood and respected. A week after my arrival, a young man entered the shop. He seemed agitated, his eyes darting nervously around the room. He introduced himself as Michael, and explained that he had been drawn to the shop by a recurring dream. In the dream, he saw a book with a crimson cover, and he felt an overwhelming urge to find it. I guided him through the aisles, trying to remember Aunt Lila's warnings. We found the book he described, and as he reached for it, I hesitated. The crimson cover was vibrant, almost pulsing with an inner light. I could sense the energy within, a restless spirit, eager to be released. "Michael, wait," I said, placing a hand on his arm. "This book, it's not safe to read just anywhere, we need to prepare." He looked at me with a mix of confusion and desperation, but he nodded. Together we took the book to the back office. I followed the steps in Aunt Lila's guide, setting up protective charms and lighting candles to create a safe space. Michael opened the book and began to read aloud. As he read, the room grew colder, and a faint mist began to form. The spirit emerged, a shimmering figure that seemed to be both there and not there. It spoke in a voice that was both haunting and sorrowful, telling a story of lost love and unfulfilled promises. Michael listened, tears streaming down his face, as if he had finally found the answer he had been seeking. When the spirit finished, it slowly faded away, leaving behind a sense of peace. Michael thanked me, his demeanor completely changed. He left the shop with a sense of purpose, and I felt a small victory. I had navigated my first encounter with the spirit successfully. As I watched him leave, I realized that my journey was just beginning. The shop held many more secrets, and I was determined to uncover them all. The Cursed Bookshop, Part 3. One quiet afternoon, a woman named Claire entered the shop. She was elegant and composed, but there was a haunted look in her eyes. She explained that she was searching for a particular book, one that she had been dreaming about for months. The dreams were vivid, filled with images of a book bound in dark green leather, its pages emitting a faint golden glow. I guided her through the aisles, sensing the familiar pull of the shop directing us to the right section. We found the book tucked away on a high shelf, exactly as she had described. As Claire reached for it, a strange feeling washed over me, a mixture of anticipation and dread. "Please be careful," I warned, remembering the lessons from Aunt Lila's journal. "This book might contain a spirit, and we need to handle it with caution." Claire nodded, her expression serious. We took the book to the back office, preparing the space as I had done before. This time, however, I felt a stronger presence, as if the spirit within was more powerful, more desperate to be heard. Claire opened the book and began to read aloud. The air grew colder, and the candles flickered wildly. A soft golden light emanated from the pages, and a figure began to materialize. This spirit was different from the others. It had an aura of sadness, but also a sense of urgency. The spirit introduced herself as Eliza, a woman who had lived centuries ago. She spoke of a great injustice, a betrayal by those she had trusted. Her story was filled with sorrow and a deep longing for redemption. As Claire listened, tears welled up in her eyes. She seemed to understand Eliza's pain on a personal level. When Eliza finished her tale, she looked directly at Claire. "You are the one who can help me find peace," she said, her voice a mere whisper. "I need you to set things right." Claire nodded, as if accepting a heavy burden. The spirit slowly faded, leaving behind a sense of solemn determination. Claire turned to me, her eyes filled with resolve. "I need to find out more about Eliza's story," she said. "There must be records, something that can help me understand what happened to her." I agreed to help, and we spent the next few days researching Eliza's history. We found old documents and letters that pieced together her tragic story. She had been wronged by a powerful figure in her community, and her spirit had been bound to the book, waiting for someone who could uncover the truth and clear her name. As Claire delved deeper into the investigation, I began to notice strange occurrences in the shop. Books would move on their own, and the shadows seemed to shift unnaturally. One night I found a message scrawled on a piece of parchment: "Beware the darkness that lies within." The warning was clear, but I didn't fully understand its implications. I continued to assist Claire, hoping that solving Eliza's mystery would bring an end to the disturbances. One evening, as we were sifting through old records, the shop grew eerily quiet. The candles flickered and a cold wind blew through the room. I felt a presence, different from the spirits I had encountered before. This one was malevolent, filled with anger and hatred. Suddenly, the back door slammed shut, and the temperature dropped sharply. Claire and I looked at each other, fear evident in our eyes. The malevolent spirit was here, and it was not pleased with our investigation. The room darkened and a shadowy figure appeared, its eyes glowing with an intense, fiery light. It moved towards us, radiating malice. I realized with a jolt of terror that this spirit was connected to Eliza's story, but it was not her. It was the one who had wronged her, and it was determined to keep its secrets buried. I grabbed the guide Aunt Lila had written, frantically searching for a way to protect us. Claire stood beside me, clutching Eliza's book. The malevolent spirit advanced, and I knew we had to act quickly. Together, we recited a protection spell from the guide, creating a barrier of light around us. The spirit hissed and recoiled, but it did not disappear. It circled us, waiting for an opportunity to strike. I knew then that this was only the beginning. The bookshop held many secrets, and some were darker and more dangerous than I had ever imagined. The Cursed Bookshop, Part 4. One night, as I was poring over the journal in the dim light of the office, the malevolent spirit made its most aggressive move yet. The shop's lights flickered and then went out entirely. The darkness was suffocating, and I could hear Claire's frightened gasp from the next room. I grabbed a candle and lit it, its feeble flame casting long, wavering shadows. Suddenly, the spirit materialized, its form more solid and menacing than ever. Its eyes burned with fury, and it moved towards us with deliberate, threatening steps. In its hand it held a ghostly dagger, its edges glinting with a deadly shimmer. Claire stood frozen, clutching Eliza's book to her chest. I remembered Aunt Lila's final entry in the journal, a desperate note written in the margins. The only way to banish the malevolent spirit is to confront it with the truth it fears. I realized then that we had to reveal the full story, to expose the spirit's misdeeds and bring justice to Eliza. "Claire, read the final passage of Eliza's story," I urged, my voice trembling. "We need to finish what we started." Claire nodded, her hands shaking as she opened the book to the last glowing page. She began to read aloud, her voice growing stronger with each word. The spirit recoiled but did not retreat. It seemed to grow angrier, its form shifting and distorting with rage. "Eliza was betrayed by those she trusted most," Claire read, her voice echoing through the darkened shop. "Her spirit remains bound, seeking justice for the wrongs done to her. The one who betrayed her must be named, and his deeds exposed to the light." As Claire spoke, the shop seemed to react. The air hummed with energy and the shadows retreated. The spirit howled in fury, but it was clear that the truth was weakening it. I stepped forward, holding Aunt Lila's guide, and began to recite a binding spell. "With this spell, we call upon the power of truth," I chanted, my voice steady. "We bind the malevolent spirit to its actions, to the deeds it committed in life. Let justice be done, and let the spirit be banished." The spirit screamed, its form flickering like a dying flame. It lashed out, but the barrier of light we had created held strong. Claire continued to read, her voice unwavering. "The betrayer's name was Thomas Blackwood," she declared. "His crimes are exposed, his spirit condemned to face the consequences of his actions." With those words, the spirit let out a final piercing wail, and then disintegrated into nothingness. The shop fell silent, the oppressive weight lifting from the air. The lights flickered back on, casting a warm glow over the room. Claire and I stood there, breathing heavily, our eyes meeting in a moment of shared triumph. We had done it. We had freed Eliza's spirit and banished the malevolent force that had haunted the shop. In the days that followed, the atmosphere in the shop changed. The air was lighter, the shadows less threatening. I continued to explore Aunt Lila's journal, learning more about the spirits and their stories. Claire visited often, and together we ensured that the spirits within the books were treated with the respect and care they deserved. The bookshop remained a place of mystery and wonder, but it was no longer a place of fear. As I stood behind the counter, watching the sunlight stream through the windows, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. I had inherited more than just a shop. I had inherited a legacy, a mission to protect and honor the stories within its walls. And as for the spirits, they were no longer restless. They had found their peace, just as I had found mine.